It's Monday, January 29th. I'm Geoff Schwartz alongside Gabe Goodwin. This is Geoff Schwartz of Smarter Than You. We have just completed Championship Weekend in the National Football League. We're here to break it all down. Next week, we will have a show where it's me, it's Gabe, it's Matt, all together for the Super Bowl in Los Angeles. We'll have Prize Picks back. We'll have Volta back. We'll have it all for the week of the big game. Gabe, it is the Chiefs, it is the 49ers. It's a rematch of the 2019 season Super Bowl. The game was actually in February 2020. It was the last major event in the world, I think, before we just didn't leave our houses for 7 months. So I don't think that'll be the same this season, but Niners Chiefs meet once again. How was your weekend? I saw you made some USC basketball. I think I saw you there at the was it the women's or men's game?
Women's game. Juju Watkins, best player in LA. And
the men's game didn't go so well for the Trojans.
No, less so. But watched a lot of football with the kids yesterday. Excited to talk to you about it. And you're going to be here, like you said. You're going to be in Los Angeles. So maybe we'll get some eggs and bacon and all kinds of yummy stuff while you're out here. Geoff, there's a lot of angles that a lot of people are talking about. And then there's a lot of angles that people are pretending that other people are talking about so they can get angry about them. And they don't make a lot of sense to me. I want to save all that nonsense.
Okay. Let's do it.
I want to get into some real football talk with you because we had two pretty good football games with some very good teams. And now we are officially at the part where we have to actually talk about like bona fides, GOAT convos for Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, this core Chiefs team.
Yep.
Before we do legacy stuff, why did they look so good? Why did the Ravens look so overmatched? Yeah. Why did everything click in the most important game so far this season?
So I watch all sports just like you do. We've watched sports our entire lives. I have never believed in the idea of a championship team turning it on in the postseason outside of the NBA. I feel like the NBA is a sport game where we've seen where teams can turn on the postseason. And sometimes that's just injury, right? The Warriors a couple of years ago got healthy the last week of the season, it felt like. The Lakers didn't win a championship last year, but they certainly turned it on in the postseason.
Yes.
Football, you can't do that. Baseball, you can't do it. Hockey, maybe get a hot goalie, and you have the 8 seed, Blues, right? They sort of ran through the postseason, but it is very rare, right? In the NFL, it's nearly impossible. It's just the sport's not built to sort of just decide we're going to play much better in the postseason because you're often not in the postseason if you don't play on the regular season. But the Chiefs have me believing that maybe they're the outlier, that they just turn it on because the things that plagued them in the regular season, just dumb mistakes, right? Just like dumb football. Outside the McCall Hardman play against Buffalo, we haven't seen dumb football. The drops plagued them the entire season. There were games they lost because they could not catch the football. All of a sudden, the postseason, catching every football. Travis Kelce, a lot of times this year, looked a little bit slower, a little bit a step lost. 7 catches against the Dolphins in game 1, 5 against Buffalo with 2 touchdowns, and obviously yesterday had a great first half. The penalties, we saw penalties all season long on the offensive line, can't line up correctly. All of a sudden, Gabe, the penalties have disappeared. The Mahomes and the way sometimes this year he looked a little bit off, not quite the same, still the best quarterback in the NFL, but some bad throws, all gone, Gabe. All of it's gone. And all their focus now is on winning these playoff games in the most efficient way possible. It's not the way they've won in previous. They only scored 17 points on offense. Even if you want to take away the bad holding call, that's still just 21 points, right? But they're winning in different ways. There's the idea that they have been here before. The coaching staff, the players, and not all the players have been to the 4 Super Bowls, but a lot, the main guys have, and the coaching staff has as well. And they're just able to understand what it means to play these postseason games. And they have played great the last 3 weeks. There's no doubt about it. The defense is much better than we give credit for. We talk about the Niners defense. We'll get to that game like it's the Chiefs defense game is one of the best in the NFL. And they fooled Lamar yesterday. They got him in bad situations. And I just think in general, this team understands how to win playoff football games.
Yeah, I mean, I'll keep it real simple. It seemed to me time of possession was the point of emphasis for the Chiefs. They dominated time of possession, and so even a few drives that resulted in punts in the second half served their purpose. It seemed like the whole goal was chew clock and take Lamar out of the world where their run game was accessible to them. The running backs barely touched the ball. Lamar did not do as much as he can with his legs. They were slinging it and throwing deep balls, just trying to get back in the game. And it just felt like a perfectly executed game plan from the Chiefs side.
So you mentioned the running backs. I think Gus Edwards and Hill had 6 combined carries in that game. And it's an atrocious game plan by the Ravens. It's unacceptable. The Chiefs are not good at stopping the run, and they did not do it enough. And to your point about the tempo, one of the hard things about play calling in the NFL is what happens when things don't go exactly right, right? Like what do you do? And it felt like the Chiefs have never really had this problem where they just call the game plan as they call it, no matter what sort of part. Now, I think Andy Reid throws the ball too much, but that's just always what he's done. But the tempo of this game was not how the Ravens wanted it to go. And they just stopped running the football. I don't know why, Gabe. And one thing, though, this is a very specific sort of gripe I have about RPOs, okay? It's a problem I have with the Ravens, a problem I have with the Oregon Ducks at times. It's very football nerdy, but let's do it. When you have an RPO, it's a run-pass option, right? So you're reading the defense, and you're to give them all the running back, or you're pulling it away and throwing the football. Now, at times the quarterback might run also, so maybe it's a run-pass option. Doesn't matter. But when you're an RPO-based team, the opponent can force you to throw the football based on their defensive alignment. And there were times in this game where the Ravens threw the ball to the edge because the Chiefs defense aligned in a way where the numbers were better to throw the ball. Well, some of those throws, Zay Flowers, it was a bad throw, one didn't catch it. Another one got tipped, and they got tackled the line of scrimmage. And these are wasteful plays instead of just running the football and lining up and saying, we're going to smash you in the face and we're going to run the football. And so it negates the physicality the Ravens had, I think, on their offensive line, their ability to run the football against the Chiefs defense that was out without their nose tackle, without their middle linebacker, well, one of their middle linebackers. And that's a bad game plan. Oregon had the same problem this year in some of their games. And I just don't like it, Gabe. Just call and run the football. Yeah, you can have a check off of it if it's really that overloaded and you got to throw the football. I get it. But the RPO part of it, I think, really hurt the Ravens this game. They had more called runs. They just didn't do it because they saw the look was, let's throw the football. And I thought they got outcoached. They got outcoached in this game. And it showed, obviously, in the final result. Lamar didn't play his best game, obviously. That throwing the triple coverage was not good. He was sort of rattled with the pressure packages, the Chiefs' problem. I thought the Ravens' defense was generally fine, Gabe. They didn't allow any second-half points. 17 points typically will win you a lot of games. Obviously, the fumble by Zay Flowers was not good. For the life of me, man, was that second down or third down?
He would have had the end zone.
Yeah, the end zone, the dive to the end zone. I'm going to make sure I have this right. Yeah. I just don't understand, unless it's fourth down or even maybe a third down, you're behind, put the ball over into the end zone. Because the things that happen on those plays are always bad and not good. Sorry, it was 2nd and 8. 2nd and 8. So it would have been 3rd and 1 at the 1 if you had just dove into the end zone, secured the ball, or maybe, by the way, you dive through the defenders and you get a touchdown anyways. But putting the ball out, only bad things happen. Nothing good ever happens. Like, you went at 3rd and 1 from the 1, you would have scored a touchdown in 2 plays. And so the Ravens made mistakes. We saw in both games. This is something that we talk about on this show. I don't know how many other people talk about this very often. I don't listen to a lot of those shows, Gabe. Is that oftentimes you can lose a game more than you can win a game. And the Ravens and Lions yesterday, I thought, both lost their games, right? The Chiefs did some good things, obviously. The Niners did good things. The Lions and Ravens did some good, but they had too many mistakes, Gabe, to beat good football teams. The Ravens made too many mistakes. The penalties, I thought, were, look, the Zay Flowers one, I'm firm, like, I think taunting should not be a penalty, honestly. I don't like it. But when you push a defender back on the ground and spin the ball in his face, you're getting a penalty. Those are the rules in the NFL. If you hit Mahomes in the head as he's throwing the football, you're getting a personal foul penalty. Klein didn't have to do that. Just hit him in the chest. Um, and so the Ravens just did not play smart football in this game, and they lost the game. The Chiefs, it was there to take. It just didn't happen.
Yeah. Well, the Chiefs did play a very good game. It reminded me a little bit of like one of these UFC fights with Kamaru Usman, where he might fight somebody who can do more exciting things, but he just understands how you score points in the UFC. He understands how not to open himself up to a huge knockout. He's just technically more skilled. And so even though he might not give you the fight of the night, he's just going to wear you down and beat you. And that sort of seemed like what the Chiefs did to the Ravens. The Ravens, who might have been a more exciting team all year, just lost to the team that was better at winning.
Also, the Ravens are going to be full of regret today, Gabe, because this was the year to do it, right?
Yeah.
Think about the rest of the AFC. Chiefs aren't as good. Bills have injuries, quarterback issues in the rest of your division because of injuries, right? Dolphins can't win the cold. Herbert injured, wasn't good this year. Trevor Lawrence wasn't good this year. Like this is the year to do it.
Yeah.
And the Chiefs are going to be better next season with better wide receivers. And this was the year to do it. You were the healthier team. You're at home. And you texted me yesterday that if I was jinxing the Chiefs and by saying they thought they were going to lose. I did think they were going to lose, but I'll tell you what gave me a little bit more hope they were going to win is that Vegas needed the Chiefs to win yesterday. Like everyone's on the Ravens. Everyone's on the Ravens. And Vegas needed the Chiefs, and Vegas gets what they want, and the Chiefs won the football game. So there's my conspiracy corner today.
Well, Vegas very literally gets the Chiefs because that's the site of the Super Bowl in 2 weeks. So let's talk about some sort of historical stuff here. So I think anyone who pays any attention to X or Twitter throughout the games has already seen a lot of these comparisons. But basically, as the game wound down, it was an endless stream of Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady comps. Chiefs versus the dynasty, the Patriots dynasty. And in every comparison, Patrick Mahomes, I'm sorry, everyone who loves Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes comes out ahead. All right. 28, he's already been to he's been to 6 AFC championships games. Now he's in his 4th Super Bowl. He has a chance for a 3rd ring. You know, all the individual records, he's already got most of them, and he's only 28. It took Tom Brady till about 34 to reach most of those achievements. So do we have to actually talk about this now? Is the, Brady, Belichick, Pats run still better than the Mahomes, Reed, and Kelsey Chiefs run? It seems like they've done more in fewer years.
So
in KC,
the Patriots had essentially 2 separate runs, right? They won 3 in 4 years. In
defense led
3 and 4. They went in 7 and 11, lost both those years to the Giants, and then went 1 in 14, 16, 18, I think, with 1 loss to the Eagles and 17 in between. Brady leaves, he wins in Tampa. The Chiefs have made 6 straight AFC Championship games. They made 4 Super Bowls in 6 seasons. And I looked this up today. I just wanted to make sure. The Patriots never had to play never played 2 road games on the way to a Super Bowl. They played 2 road games before and lost in the championship game, but never won 2 road games. Aaron Schatz, who was a Football Outsiders, does the DVOA now at FTN Bets. He put this out earlier today. So he still does DVOA. We've talked about DVOA a lot. It's not a surprise here. The Chiefs will have the hardest Super Bowl path by opposing DVOA if they beat San Francisco. They've been through a gauntlet, man. And Gabe, they were not behind a single minute of this game. They were in a lead in the 4th quarter the entire time in Buffalo. I mean, is Mahomes better than Brady?
Yes.
I think the answer is he can make throws Brady could not make. His ability, and I got to study Tom Brady on this exact thing, but Mahomes' ability to do 2 things sort of in the same thing, where his ability to know where the defense is going to be post snap, right? Where they're looking to especially zone coverage, mostly where they're going to be, and then where his receiver has the optimal opportunity to catch the football in that zone. And we see this often where we saw this with Travis Kelce. He caught a pass early in the game where he sort of was running a deep corner route, and he kind of caught it between three defenders, and he stopped in that zone, caught it on his inside shoulder, was able to catch the ball and spin up the field, right? A lot of quarterbacks don't throw that ball right there. They lead Travis Kelce into a safety, or they sort of throw it maybe low and outside where he catches the ball and sort of dives into safety. But Mahomes' ability to throw the ball in the exact perfect spot in a zone and the wide receiver to catch the football and get up the field, man, there's nothing like it, because that's not called. When you look at a route concept, it's not like run and sort of like run a corner and then stop. It's just like run a corner, right? Just like run the route. And the ability for Mahomes as well to know exactly where that point should be on a field, man, there's nothing like it. There's just nothing like it, buddy. And that's, I think, what sets him apart from Brady. I think they're both excellent leaders. Obviously there's no cheating allegations with the Chiefs, which I know that you love to hear that
there's proof. It's not allegations. It was proven cheaters, but
it's a known. Andy Reid is just not his personality. I mean, obviously Andy Reid is so much fun. One thing too, this is a big advantage for the Chiefs. As I mentioned to you, they've been here before, right? I've never played this far. I've never been to a Super Bowl before. Been a couple of playoff games. But when you look at the Chiefs locker room after they win these games, it's so businesslike. Yeah. It's just like they come in, they hug each other, we did it. And then as soon as Andy Reid talks, he talks for 30 seconds. Hey, he's like, great win, guys. We got one more, but let's enjoy this one. How about them Chiefs? Like, prayer, done. It's so workmanlike. It's so businesslike. They've been here before. They've done this before. There's no worries. There's no concerns. They can't do the job. And that permeates all through, because they have a young roster. They're young at wide receiver. They're young in the secondary. Now, some of those guys were there last year, obviously. They're young at defensive line outside of Chris Jones. But they just believe they're going to win every game. And my early feeling on the Super Bowl is they're going to win the Super Bowl as well. I get a choice between Brock Purdy and Patrick Mahomes. I know who I'm taking in that matchup. But this is the best year they've had. And this is sort of Brady's 2018 season, right? Where they just sort of cobbled together an offense and made it work. But man, it's impressive to watch them.
Well, since the Brady comparison is obvious one, I'm going to throw this comparison at you. I actually think that this Chiefs team over the last 6 seasons reminds me more of the Tim Duncan Spurs than that Patriots team. And the reason is because they're just mostly homegrown, right? They've been a core. Those guys came up through the program. It wasn't like big free agency signings. They've been consistent to the point of boredom, and they're beating all-time greats. Duncan was playing in an era with LeBron in his heyday, Kobe in his heyday. He was beating or at least superseding teams that, were in the top 10 of all time type players. Yeah. So I'm curious if you see that comparison, because it's, coach-led, culture-based team that we every year take for granted, which was what the Spurs were in the early days.
That's a good comp, except, of course, Tim Duncan was not Patrick Mahomes in a sense. He was an all-time great, but not maybe the greatest. But I think the coach is certainly the coaching. I think I'm with you. Andy Reid's not going to turn into a curmudgeon like Greg Popovich has become, but I think that's a really good, because they're not flashy, right? I mean, this year especially, it's defense, it's physicality, it's hard nose, it's all the things that you would love about a championship team. This is why I thought the Ravens, by the way, were going to win, because they had everything that you love in a team, in a winning team. So, man, it was impressive, man. Impressive.
And to extend this analogy, though, it's also a lot of guys who you look at, and this will get us to Kelce for a minute. You look at and you go, yeah, that guy's really good, like really good. But I don't think he could do that anywhere in the league. I think it's only like Manu Ginobili, great player. It's not like Manu Ginobili just show up anywhere and be that good. Tony Parker, same thing. Tim Duncan, obviously. Yeah. Like, there's something to the system that takes repetition.
It's also fairly interesting about Travis Kelce, because he is a dynamic player on a limited play count. Like
Mm.
he is not a guy that is playing every snap anymore. And did he play the second half of the game? Did he have a catch in the second half? Like he's just in spurts. He is an all-time great still, but you're not even getting a full 60 minutes from him because of his age. He's just an older player. Like they came out and just blitzed, they spammed Travis Kelce receptions, which I lost that wager, but there were a ton of them that just were like 1 yard receptions. I mean 1 yard passes. They spammed Travis Kelce early in the game, and man, he just showed up for that first half, kicked ass, and then sort of just hung on the second half. But that's what you're getting from him. You're not even getting a full 60 minutes of brilliance anymore, but he's so impactful because of how well he can play with Mahomes and how well he just plays as a player.
Yeah, I mean, and again, this is where you have to explain things. I just look at every play pre-snap, and I'm like, man, if I was a linebacker and I saw Travis Kelce in a second and long, third and long, like I'm just crapping my pants because I know the guy is going to come find some space, and I'm going to have to go try to pull him down, and he knows exactly where the sticks are. Mahomes is going to put it exactly where it's supposed to be. Like I'm going to get burnt right now. That's how I would approach it if I was a linebacker. It's got to be so disheartening.
It's really hard. It's a good point. But part of what makes it really hard too is what I mentioned earlier. Like he kind of just finds the hole in the zone. And so you're sort of never right, Gabe, right? Like if you think he's going to run a certain route and you're in a different coverage that doesn't work for that route, he'll just run a different route and Mahomes will find him. And like that's the part that is you can't teach it obviously, but you also just can't even show it on film. Like there are times when you don't even know if it's happening. Now the quarterback series with Mahomes, we sort of saw him explain this a little bit, but there are times, and my brother said this, like they're watching film and the O-line coach is like, this is not what we called. He just does whatever, does whatever he wants. And Mahomes knows exactly what's going to happen. And by the way, we're sort of seeing this with Rashid Rice now, where he's sort of picking up on those cues of where he needs to be on any given snap. And it's making a difference in the Chiefs passing game.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm not coaching. I'm helping with, 5 and 6 year old basketball now. And the thing that is the hardest to explain, but you see makes the biggest difference is, can you just figure out how to make eye contact with your teammate, get to a place where they can throw you the ball, and then you have a look at the rim. Like if you can figure out those, that geometry, you're going to be much better. There's no play for that. There's no real way to explain that. But that seems like the thing that they have, more than anyone. So we hit on it with Lamar. I think we covered the Zay Flowers. Like Kadarius Toney looked like a friggin' rocket scientist compared to Zay Flowers on that one drive. Is there anything left to say about the Ravens? I think nice year, and unfortunately it flamed out the way it has a few other times in the past. They're a contender next year, but until they do it, we're not betting on them, right? That's kind of the summary of the season.
I think the summary of the season is always bet the Chiefs to win the AFC and the Super Bowl, and just figure out who can beat them at some point.
All right, well, so let's talk about that other team that absolutely could beat them, and obviously, the lines will open, and then we'll spend 2 weeks talking about who wins. The easiest thing to say is what you just said. Mahomes versus Brock Purdy. Who's going with Brock Purdy?
Yeah.
But, dude, let's be honest. That second half was unreal. And the guy actually has legs. The guy makes huge plays when he has to. Yes, he has some great weapons, but he did a lot of things right. And I think even a Chiefs fan, as confident as you feel right now, has to admit the Niners do look scary. Like this is not an easy Chiefs win coming.
Okay. We will preview the Super Bowl another time. I will. I have many thoughts on Super Bowl. I'll have an article up on Fox Sports later today, by the way, that'll explain a lot of my thoughts on the Super Bowl early the Super Bowl week. Let's talk about the Niners and Brock Purdy. First half was not good. Second half was much better. That's what Brock Purdy is at times, right? You get the good and the bad. A lot of times it's been good this season, Gabe, but he decided at some point in the third quarter, like, okay, fine, I'm going to be the guy now. A lot of times I think they win not in spite of, but as a collective offense, right? Where the Chiefs, let's say, for example, win because Mahomes is incredible, or the Ravens win because Lamar Jackson's great. The second half of that game, the Niners won because of Brock Purdy, right? Now, of course, they ran the ball better. They forced a turnover. Dan Campbell, we'll talk about him in a second, decision-making process. But they won because of Brock Purdy. Not in spite of, which happens at times, but not as a collective. Because Brock Purdy decided, you know what, I'm going to run the football. It wasn't even like the throws. I mean, the IU catch should have been an interception. That would have changed, obviously, the game if that had happened, but it did. That's sometimes the breaks that you get. But Purdy's ability to just turn to playmaker mode was super important in that game. He ran the ball well. He got, I think I heard the number, he got 6 first downs via rushing the ball, which is, you would never think that with Brock Purdy. So that was impressive game. The first half was bad. And, you play that way against Kansas City, it ain't going to go well. But when the Niners are on schedule, they are a very tough team to beat. Off schedule, it's a little bit different. But that second half they were down 24-7 and scored 24 unanswered points, man. Like it's an impressive second half.
Yeah, it sure was. And I don't know why the Lions, who'd literally never been there before, acted as though they had. You're not going to catch me criticizing Eminem, but I don't know, man. That middle finger that went viral maybe not have been the best timed one. Gardner Johnson sort of waving goodbye to the Santa Clara fans a little too early. Let's talk about Dan Campbell. I saw an endless amount of criticism of play calling decisions, and just generally coaching was to blame, was the way that X had it as the game was winding down. Not how I saw it. Please explain to me why people are so pissed at Dan Campbell, a guy who apparently until this moment could do no wrong. Remember, we were so in on Dan Campbell. Everything he did was brilliant and perfect, and tonally, he was the reason the team was there. And then they blow a lead on some bad plays, and now it's all completely his fault? Huh?
Okay, so this discourse is so bad. I don't have a hot opinion on the Dan Campbell going forward. I am a person who would prefer my team stay aggressive, Gabe. We talked about this when it comes to Oregon and Dan Lanning against Washington this year. Like, just push, aggressive, go for it. Like, just I want that out of my team. It's what the Lions are. It's who they are. It's how they got here. It's how Dan Campbell will call a game next season. I understand when the margin is 3 points. You look back and say, well, if they kicked that field goal, they would have tied the game. You're not wrong, but what about the fumble? What about the drops? What about Geoff not playing on the second half? What about the defense allowing the Niners to just run right through them? Like, there's other reasons why you lost. I'd rather my coach be aggressive and go for it and try to win the game than settle for long field goals on the road. The crazy number 2 is their kicker they signed him in December, I believe. He had not kicked outside the entire season. So they had played only games inside from just basically October on, which is an insane number, Gabe. But I'm fine with it. Like, it just didn't work. It's not why they lost the game. They lost the game because the Niners kicked their ass in the second half, and the Lions wilted under the pressure of that moment. They didn't play well in the second half. They just didn't, and that's why they lost the game.
Yeah, well, thanks. And also thanks to Dan Campbell for finally we have our leader. The cancel kicking movement is being led by Dan Campbell. I used to think it was Brandon Staley. He seemed allergic to kickers. By the way, same kicker, Badgley. I like the fact that they just say, screw it. We're not bringing some soccer player out here. We're going to ram it down your throat and win. And you're right. It didn't work. But he's consistent with this. And when it worked, had he converted on a few of those, we'd all be praising him for that approach. So you can't have it both ways, everybody.
Yeah. You can't. And that's, I think, the issue, right? It's like all season long, people are like, oh, Dan Campbell, go for it. Great. Let's make it happen. And now it's like, well, no. Field goal time.
Right.
You can't have it both ways, Gabe.
Yeah. Everyone was loving on our buddy Greg Olson during the broadcast. We like to hit on the media side of this. He was terrific.
He's so good, man.
We like him, and we nerd out for the way he analyzes it. But if you can as succinctly explain why he's great as he succinctly explains why plays work, that would be nice, because I think it's an easy thing for X to key in on. But why is Greg so good at this?
So our podcast, Geoff Schwartz is smarter than you, right? The goal of that fancy title is to try to educate, right? the listener and the viewer on social media about the game of football, right? And I try to do it in a way that is not overly aggressive with football terminology, is not overly aggressive with trying to confuse you and sound like I'm smarter than you by just saying, "Oh, guys, it's trips right, snag left, Y zebra with a Mike Sam Will pressure." We don't do that, right? I try to explain football to you in layman's terms, as concise as possible. That's what Greg does. I'm not saying he got it from me. He's much better than me at that job. But the point is, like, he explains what's happening in very simple terms, Gabe. And he explains to the listener exactly what happened on the play. And so you come away feeling like I'm smarter as a football fan. I learned something about this play because of the way Greg talked about the play. He also is willing to talk about coaching decisions, whether, that third down, the Lions ran the ball and had to, kill a timeout there. Greg talked about that. It's happening. He's sitting in the like, guys, if they run the football here, gotta call a timeout. I'm sure I passed the football. They ran the ball. He was ready to talk about that play. He's just ready for all the moments of the game, Gabe. And look, I'm not here to really talk down about anyone, but like Romo doesn't do any of that. You don't learn anything during the game when Tony Romo talks. Like absolutely nothing. I learned something about the game when Greg Olsen talks. And that's the big factor here. He's just talking about football. And he knows the offensive line too, which is important. I mean, to me, obviously in my world, but playing tight end is interesting because you learn the offensive line and the passing game. You got to know both if you're a tight end. And Greg's able to talk about it and be concise about it and share it, man. And he's a smart dude. We know that already. But it doesn't come off as condescending. It doesn't come off as a know-it-all. And it's everything you want in a play-by-play guy. I mean, a color analyst.
He also absolutely loves the game. And I would say this, not to focus on Greg too much, but I think there's a generation of players, and you're in it, Geoff, as evidenced by you referencing DVOA earlier. I think we are now getting to the point where there's a generation of players who do believe in advanced analytics, who do understand that like there is something mathematical about analyzing this game, that fans can keep up with that as long as you don't overdo it. And it's nice to hear an informed person speak about the percentage play and not be cast off as some nerd. You never used to have the former star player sitting in that seat talking about what the percentage play was. They just would go with like, well, coach has a strategy. It was very simple. Greg somehow manages to both have been a star player and look at the spreadsheets.
But also explain like that it's not always the numbers too. Like I think Dan Campbell, those are not analytics essentially. That's just him being aggressive.
Yep.
Like Greg was able to explain those things. And I don't know what they do with him at Fox. I'm a Fox colleague of his. I hope he continues to call games. I think it would be a shame to let him go. And I think that, CBS would take him in a heartbeat. NBC would take him in a heartbeat. Obviously, the number one slots are not really, there's not a spot for him in those places. But he's great.
Well, I agree he's great, and I'm certain that he will have one of the biggest jobs out there. And because it seems like fans, players, executives, everyone seems to respect the job he does. Let's use him, though, as a segue to cover a couple other things, namely the coach.
Can we take our little break?
I was going to tease the break. Yeah, Geoff. I was going to be a broadcaster. I could see you needed a little break to let the guy in. We're going to talk about coaching carousel. And by the way, Greg Olsen's name somehow fits into all that.
Yes.
So we'll keep the Greg talk going. We'll take a quick break. When you're ready, we'll be back. We'll finish the show.
Okay. Be right back. All right, we're back. My dog is off to his activity. My wife only schedules things, Gabe, when I have 1 hour of podcasting to do throughout the entire day. So always great. All right, let's talk coaching carousel. What do you want to get into?
Well, I mean, I was sort of half joking when I was saying Greg Olson's name's involved, but there were reports at one time. Who knows what agent or rep was helping this, but there was discussion of maybe Greg moves into the head coaching ranks in the NFL. I certainly think he could if he wanted to. I'm not sure that's his goal. But there are still a few jobs out there, and there's still a few names. It appears that Bill Belichick is more likely to be on TV than to be coaching a team. Are you buying that? Like, let's just on face. Do you buy the idea that Bill Belichick is going to go work on TV and not be a head coach?
Yes. And Mike Vrabel will not have a job as well. Here's why. So it seems like there's two jobs open, Seattle and Washington. I think it's Ben Johnson and Mike McDonald. The Ravens DC will be in Seattle and Ben Johnson will be in Washington. The reason why is Belichick and Vrabel want control of the roster, right? They do. So it's what they want. And teams are telling them no, right? Atlanta, the GM didn't want Belichick to be in control of the roster. Vrabel, kind of famously, him and the Titans general manager did not get along, right? They had different visions for what they wanted to do. I think these teams are saying, no, you're not doing that with us. And the Chargers obviously were cool with Harbaugh being in charge of personnel. That's why they hired him before they hired the general manager. But that's a big part of it is those guys want personnel control, and the NFL teams that they're, saying, no, you're not getting control.
So explain to me, apart from ego and just having more responsibility, and anyone who works in corporate America understands how that stuff works. What is the reason why a head coach would want more control over the roster beyond the obvious, beyond just, well, I like this guy, I want to have him? Like, what advantage does that have if it's all done right?
Well, I think that the coaches want players that fit their scheme and what they do. And they
why doesn't a GM understand that as well? Like, why does Bill Belichick need to be in charge of that as well? Can't somebody who's good at giving him what he needs go get him what he needs?
Well, the best do that, right? Like Brett Veach and the Chiefs have done that, right? I mean, Baltimore for so many years has done that. But once you give a coach personnel control, then it's hard for them to not want to do it anymore. One of the guys that actually successfully went away from that was Andy Reid. He had personnel control in Philly, got to Kansas City, and famously just said, "I'm not doing this anymore. I don't want the responsibility." It's a lot of like imagine now your season ends. You've spent no time scouting these players. Now you have to spend the next 2 months just scouting 400 players and figure out who to draft. Let the general manager and scouting department do that. You don't know the red flags of these players. You're not watching every game of these players. And I think that's a big part of why it's really tough to do both jobs well. They're jobs that are both at a high level. And being a general manager, you have to worry about salary cap situation. Like, it's just a difficult job, man. And there's obviously a collaboration that we see happen quite often between a coach and a general manager. It's not like the GM chooses every single player. There has to be a sort of understanding between the coach and the general manager on what quarterback works best for someone's given offense. But like, why? I don't think Andy Reid or anyone should be drafting the 4th round corner. Like, what are they? They're not watching those. That's why it's hard to do both of those jobs well.
Yeah. I also just like, it takes a certain amount of confidence. And Andy Reid seems like, that's why I compared him to Popovich earlier. Seems like the perfect guy to be like, hey, like, I don't need to prove that I'm also smarter than you. Like, I'll just do my job. You do your job. We'll work on working well together. And like, that's enough responsibility. I'm fine. Like, that takes an amount of confidence that some people do not have.
It's also why I think Andy Reid is not going to retire. I know there's just only Mike Florio, the conspiracy theorist, is talking about it. It's well, he is. I mean, he just has he's a conspiracy guy all the time.
I know. I just don't take it seriously.
But no, my point is, like, people see this and people have asked me, like, was he going to retire? No, he just now gets to go like to a beach somewhere for a month after the season, and then he just refreshes himself and gets back to work with the best quarterback in the National Football League. Like, he's not choosing players anymore. He's not spending time grinding away trying to figure out how to better his roster. There's people doing that right now. He's not getting burnt out. All he's doing is coaching football, man. He's coaching the best quarterback in the National Football League. Like, he's not burned out. He's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I don't see why he would. Quick aside, Travis Kelce, they win. Does that make him more or less likely to retire? I honestly don't know.
My guess is no. Either way, he will not retire. Okay. My guess is he will spend the offseason, the first month of the offseason, just like doing fun bro stuff, like just like drinking, enjoying his time, celebrating, partying, just having fun as a 34-year-old. He'll probably go visit Taylor across the continent as she does her world tour, and then he might think, like, after the season, while he's doing this, like, man, it's kind of what I want to do. Like, I'm sort of just over football. But then about March, April, when you kind of, your body feels like it's feeling better and football starts calling your name, you'll go play again. That's my guess. Is we're going to hear reports of like, oh, he's thinking about it. And then come April and May, he's like, oh, my body's good again. I feel really good. And in the Chiefs notoriously have not had tough off seasons. I mean, you can't be tough anymore, but just their off seasons have not been as tough. And I just think that he's going to be just ready to play again next season.
All right. I'm going to continue to propose to you that I believe his brother, Jason, will end up on the Chiefs somehow, some way. I think that will become better for all of them and the things they do away from the field as well. That's just a guess. That's not based on anything. I'm guessing that Bill Belichick will not end up having a weekly appearance on Pat McAfee's show, even though Pat would probably like that Bill will find a head coaching job somewhere, somehow. I do not see him showing up on TV. I'm sorry. Like, deep down, Nick Saban is like a joyful, seemingly happy guy. He just doesn't like to show that publicly. I don't think that Bill Belichick is like a good hang anywhere. And I don't think anyone thinks that.
Jason Kelce is going to have whatever media job he wants, Gabe. I think that's what he's going to do next season.
I like the idea of him doing a tailgate show. Just travel from week to week, just going to new tailgates.
Are you pitching him? Are you pitching him right now for this?
No, that's been out there. That's a thing going on out there.
For NFL or college?
I don't know. Whatever he wants, bro. I saw it on Twitter and people were jumping all over it. I think our buddy Mike Bullock Jr. mentioned it. For his podcast, or someone like a network pays him to do that. I think NFL tailgates that would not be a good show. College, yes. There's never an NFL tailgating show for a reason. You would know more than me. I'm just saying, I agree with you. He will write his own ticket. Let me ask you this. Since we set this up as a coaching carousel topic, or veering away from it. Did Jim Harbaugh make a mistake going to the same division as Andy, Pat, and Travis? Like, they've got how many more years left dominating that division? Like, no matter how good a job Jim Harbaugh does, is he playing for, 5 and 6 seeds every season? How easy can that be?
He has Justin Herbert, though, so you can't fault him for doing that in the end, Like, that you can't. I mean, sure, but I don't think Harbaugh views it as like he's never going to win. I think he views it as a challenge.
Yeah. All right. Last question from me, and then if there's anything else we didn't cover, feel free. But since it's going to be dubbed the Grateful Dead versus Taylor Swift Super Bowl, who can you name more songs by? The Grateful Dead or Taylor Swift?
Oh, Taylor Swift. Yeah.
Okay, I'm the other way.
Well, that's surprising.
Why is that not surprising? I'm
you like the Grateful Dead. My daughter was singing Taylor Swift in the car this morning.
Okay.
I'm not a song rememberer, title rememberer. I don't know if I can name 3 Taylor Swift actual songs. I can tell you that if you put the song on, that's Taylor Swift. I don't know the names of Taylor Swift songs.
Well, that's why I was saying it the way I said
Cruel
it.
Summer is one of them, right?
I recognize a million songs by her, but I don't know what they're
called. Cruel Summer is one of them, I think, right? Is that one of them?
Cruel Summer's definitely a song. Karma.
Love my
Story.
Daughter likes this. What?
Love Story, isn't that one?
Is that the one from like 2009? My daughter likes that one.
I don't know.
Is that from her first album?
Good one. I just get good songs, but that's not the Grateful Dead's library.
We were listening in the car this morning to, I think it was channel 10, which is the the 2000s or whatever, 2000 to 2010, whatever the tens they call it, I think.
Okay.
And that Taylor Swift song, an early Taylor Swift song on, and my son said, "Oh, this is when she was doing country music." My
That's
son,
not.
Gabe,
Mm.
my son is a kid who remembers every single song lyric of every song he ever hears. It
Really?
is, yes. I'll have a song on in the car, and he'll be singing in the back seat. I'm like, dude, when have you ever heard this song before? He's like, I heard it a couple times. Mom played it. It's unbelievable. He's like, I don't know how he does it.
Yeah, that's crazy because my kids recognize the melodies and the sounds of certain songs, but they don't know any of the lyrics. They sing everything like remember that Adam Sandler thing where he used to do Eddie Vedder, and they would just like that's what they sound like, and they don't know what the hell they're saying for anything. So maybe he's got some special skill that you don't know about. You might want to look into that.
Geez, Hank knows a lot of Taylor Swift songs. That's not surprising.
Hank is texting you the names of Taylor Swift songs.
Do you know? Does Hank know no chance he knows who the Grateful Dead is?
I wouldn't imagine he knows much.
One of the lead singer was there, right, at the Niners game.
Well, the lead singer is Jerry Garcia, and he's been dead for 20-something years.
No, who was that? Who was there at the film? Yeah, Bob he just was like
one of the founding members.
He looks like very, very old. Yeah.
Well, yeah, man, he's been on the road for.
They still tour.
They still
tour. It is amazing how these musicians just live forever, and they just have done a lot of recreational drugs.
If you get past 27 as a rock musician, once you get past 27, you're good to like 100. It's just a lot of them don't get past 27. That's the hard part.
I went to an Aerosmith concert in 2012 with Jordan Gross, who played for the Panthers. And Jordan knew one of the drummers. We got to go backstage. And I thought for sure, Gabe, it was going to be a bunch of debauchery. I'm like, oh, shit, this is going to be fun. The stories will be great. Nope. Just they're all sober. It was quiet. It was boring. There was nothing happening whatsoever.
All business. They're like doing yoga and eating vegan stuff. I was like, I
want some stories, some debauchery.
Yeah, I mean, they got it all out of their system in the 60s, 70s, and 80s with those bands.
I know.
You hear about old stories about Eric Clapton, and like, I mean, the stuff that those guys were up to. He and George Harrison, like they shared a wife. Yeah, there's some weird times, man. It's not like it is today. By the way, speaking of which, we can end on this. What do you make of this like straw man argument that there's supposedly some group of people who are upset with how much coverage Taylor Swift is getting? It's like somehow taking away from the NFL. I'm not seeing anyone saying that in any sincerity. Why are we pretending that's an argument?
Okay, so I don't understand it because I'm one of these people too, by the way, that was never like, oh, they show too much kneeling, or I'm like, it's 4 seconds. They show a touchdown, they show her cheering, and they go back to the game. What do you want to see? Do you want to see Travis Kelce dancing instead, or them celebrating for 4 seconds? But Gabe, here's the thing: my daughter loves seeing Taylor Swift on the TV.
Of
course. She's 7.5. Like, that makes her entire day see Taylor Swift. She knows who Travis Kelce is because of Taylor Swift. That's why they're doing it, guys. They're doing it for my 7-year-old daughter who doesn't care about football at all, but it's like, Taylor Swift, oh, look, she's on TV again. That's it. It's not for me and you. Like, just who cares? I just do not care. They show her. Like, they show her the entire game. And, by the way, Gabe, you saw the picture of her and Andy Reid pointing at each other? You see that picture?
Yeah.
Taylor Swift seems like a genuinely good person. Like, every story you hear about Taylor Swift is how kind she is, how philanthropic she is, how good she is to people that work for her. Who has a bad story about Taylor Swift? She could easily be a douchebag. She has 2 private planes. That's how much she's worth. 2 of them. And she seems like the nicest person ever. And whether she's faking it or not, she seems really into his career, rooting for the Chiefs. Like, I find it so odd that people do not like her. I get it if it's a political thing and you're like, oh, she's too left leaning, I don't like her. I mean, fine, I guess. But there are people on the right that I don't like politically that I think are good humans. I mean, like, it just seems like an odd thing to just be so angry about them showing Taylor Swift. I don't
Yeah.
get it, man.
I'm with you. And obviously, I'm as a dad now, like I said a week or two ago, anything that gets more of your family to give you less grief about watching football all day on a Sunday is a good thing, guys. Like, it's hard to negotiate. I said to my wife on Friday, I was like, buckle up. I'm not doing the like, yeah, we'll have it on if I'm lucky thing this Sunday. The game is on and we're watching. She was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "I'm just saying I'm not doing that like don't worry about it. I'll watch what I can, red zone sort
Yeah,
of
yeah,
on in
yeah.
the back."
Oh, yeah.
This is what we're doing. No plans. And she got on board cuz she's like, there's something there for her too. She's into the conversation.
Dude, it's only good for a National Football League and for fans to have Taylor Swift be involved. And I don't care if it's fake or it's not. It's good. It's good. And she seems like a great person, a kind person, a giving person. Like it's everything you sort of want. And so, people are going to be angry about it because they're losers. It's that simple, and they have nothing to talk about.
All right. Well, we have a lot more football to talk about in the next 2 weeks. You said we'll do a special show. We'll combine a bunch of things. We'll preview the game in a lot of ways. That's coming up later.
Yes, we will do a show Friday with Matt. I'm hoping to. We're going to recap our gambling year. We have not done that so far from our futures. We'll talk a little bit about early bets we like, and I'm going to get some mailbag questions. So please, at Geoff Schwartz on Twitter or Instagram, you leave them in the comments if you like. Give me a 5-star comment with a question. We'll get some listener mailbag stuff on Friday. Then, as Gabe mentioned, next week on Tuesday, we will be all together in the same studio. Doing a show, the three of us. I don't think we've ever done that before outside of the draft special that we do. We do the mock draft. So it'll be a lot of fun Tuesday in Los Angeles. We'll talk to you guys on Friday, guys. Have a good week. Hope you enjoyed the games this weekend. Looking forward to the Super Bowl. Talk to you guys on Friday. Take care, everybody.